Hey, I'm Daniel Morad, professional GT driver, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to defend like a pro. Being a fast driver isn't everything. Knowing how to defend your position on track is equally as important, especially as you rise up the motorsport ladder and get into a more competitive scenario. Even if you're racing at a lower level with less experienced drivers, I'm going to share 3 steps or 3 tips that I use when I'm racing to set myself up for success and give myself the best possible chance to come out on top in a wheel-to-wheel combat situation.
When I'm racing on track, I always want to make plans in advance of things that are happening. If you feel like you have to make a reactionary decision, sometimes mistakes will creep in. So having a process or steps in place already will give you that sense of calm when you're going wheel to wheel racing against other opponents on track. So I've really broken it down into 3 steps. That's kind of how I process defending. And the first step that I really calculate or take into account is, what would I do? And it may sound funny, what would I do? But I always put myself in the shoes or in the driver's seat of the other car that's trying to attack me. What would they do? What would I do? If you can understand what you would do in that situation, that gives you a little bit more information as to what you should do to defend. So the first step I always do when I'm racing other opponents on track is understanding what they would want to do by putting myself in their car and asking myself, what would I do in that exact situation? And once you go through enough scenarios, you'll be able to understand and formulate the different maneuvers that would be done on track, wherever you are. So that's always step 1. What would I do? Understand what your opponent's intentions are on track. Step 2 is placement. Car placement is key. If you put your car on a specific part of the track, your opponent can't drive through. Your car is not transparent. So, unless you're racing ghost cars, you just put your car in the right part of the track and your opponent cannot drive through your car. If you place your car in advance and put it in a specific part of the track where it's indicating to your opponent, I'm occupying this space, this is my territory, your opponent will most likely choose the opposite side of the track or free space. So placement is key. Step 1 was understanding what you would do or what your opponent would do. Step 2 is putting your car in the right part of the track to set yourself up for success. So going to the whiteboard, our trusty whiteboard here, if you were to place your car on the inside of the track entering a left-hand corner, your opponent is not going to, most likely they're not going to stay right behind you. They could, but chances are they're going to look to go to your right side. And that's great because you're then protecting the inside part of the corner. And whoever controls the inside to middle of the track typically would control the corner. And that kind of step 2 will be a very long process. And we can use some examples from what I've done. I had a recent race at Laguna Seca with some of my community members. Protecting the inside is super crucial because, like I said, if you protect the inside, you control the corner. That can go wrong, of course, if you then overshoot the corner. So placement, although it's one of the 3 points, it's probably one of the most important points because it sets you up for point number 3. But what I mean by placement is, controlling the inside and therefore then controlling the center of the track on the corner entry, forcing your opponent to the outside of you. And this is kind of a bonus tip. Making sure that there is a little bit of an overlap. That's so important because if, for instance, if there's no overlap here, right? So front bumper to rear bumper, if there is, let's erase this with my finger. Let's say there's a space across. That's not good because that gives your opponent the opportunity as you start going into the corner. If you're here and your opponent has some separation and you're tighter, you have a tighter radius to overcome than your opponent who's on the outside. Your natural tendency is to go out. Your opponent will then cross you on the exit. And that's something that you don't want to have happen. So you really need to try to protect yourself from that overlap and really control the middle of the track, or the inside, which then will become the middle because you will fade across a little bit, of course. You don't want to completely wipe your opponent off. You need to give room to your opponent. But controlling that middle, having no overlap so they can't make that crossover maneuver. That's a classic overtaking opportunity. Forcing your opponent in deep, in the middle, or inside of the track, sending them long through the corner, and you crossing them on the exit. You don't want to have that happen. So make sure that, a cheeky little trick is you're going to want to create a situation where there is an overlap of your car and their car, so they can't actually drive through you and cross you over and make a switch to the inside of the track. Your opponent, I do it a lot. When my opponent leaves a bit of space and they're defending the inside, I'll then go for a crossover maneuver on corner entry or force them deep to make that crossover on the exit. So placement is key. Controlling the center of the track is everything. Step number 3 is all about controlling the exit. What I mean by that is telling your opponent when they can go to throttle. Obviously, your opponent at this point has seen that you're defending the position, you're controlling the track, controlling the position of the car on track. Now, the final job, it can all be unraveled if you don't do this final step correctly. And this is one of the most important elements because it's finishing off the 3-step process, the defending process. If you do steps 1 and 2 correctly and you fail on 3, that will give your opponent the opportunity to overtake you on the exit or get the run for the following corner. So what I mean by controlling the exit is ensuring that you don't overcharge the center of the corner. You already have the track placement on entry into the middle. If you overshoot and you don't control when your opponent goes on throttle, then you've essentially failed everything leading up to that point. So in terms of what this would look like on the whiteboard, your car is on the inside of the track and you want to basically just control your speed at that point. You're essentially just driving to what your opponent is doing at that given time. You can drive in your mirror. You can look in your mirror at this point right here. You're not going to overshoot, right? Driving in your mirror at the entry point in the corner will lead you to probably missing your corner because you're not focusing on your references. You've already set the car correctly and braking and turn it. So you're in the center of the corner. Now you can afford yourself that opportunity to just have a peek at what your opponent's doing. Are they backing off? What are they doing? Are they backing off? Are they trying to run the outside? You can then gauge how much speed you need to run through the middle of the corner. If your opponent stays on the outside of you, then you can just run the speed and run out. You don't run them off the track because you're in advance accelerating and occupying the space they want. If your opponent is backing off and creating that space from their front bumper to your rear bumper, they're obviously looking to create that crossover on exit. So then if you identify that and you can see that happening, you can just slow down a few extra kilometers per hour in the center of the corner and ensure that you don't run wide on exit. So you can block off that center. You can prevent them from getting that run because they can't drive through your car. Remember that. At that point, you can control when they get on throttle. You're already controlling when they turn in. You want to have full control of your opponent and essentially dictate when they can turn in and when they can go on throttle. That's going to help you keep your position, not just for this specific corner, but also for the following straight and the corner that ensues after that. So it's important to understand your opponent, know their intention, know what you would want to do, place the car, have the control your opponent on the entry, mid-corner phase, and also controlling them on that exit. Understanding, do they want to run the outside? Do they want to cross over? And then you can plan accordingly. If you follow these 3 steps, then you control your opponent and you will become the master of defending.
I hope this information helps you guys next time you're wheel to wheel racing on track and you come out on top. And of course, if you made it to this point in the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could like and subscribe. That goes a long way in us reaching a larger audience and sharing this amazing knowledge from my real life racing to all sim racers and also real life drivers. Of course, comments are huge for the channel because I need to know, how's the video doing? Do you like it? Can it be better? Are there things that can be improved? Are there topics that you want me to talk about? I can share anything almost with you guys. So I would love to hear from all you watching. And aside from that, like I said, hope this helps, and I will see you guys in a future video.